Riku's Side. Prologue, Radiant Garden. Some years earlier, Ansem the Wise had always kept peace in the beautiful world of Radiant Garden. At the center of his realm was his laboratory, where he and his apprentices carried out their research. Now, though, an eerie silence had fallen over the lab. Two figures wearing white lab coats lay on the floor, Ienzo and Devin. They had been helping Ansem with his experimentation. Before them, a man with a single eye, Brake, faced a computer. He looked up as someone else entered the lab.
"Hey, is this how you wanted it?"
Brake hurried over to the man, a youth with silver hair.
"Xehanort, you want to fill me in?"
He called the young man Xehanort, but Brake had once known someone else, an old man, who went by the same name. The two looked nothing like each other. Xehanort had been defeated in battle, after which Brake had discovered this man collapsed here in Radiant Garden with no memory of his past. Or at least, that was how the story went. Brake was the sole person in this world who knew the truth of his identity. His name had once been Terra. His hair was a different color now, but it was undeniably him. The unfortunate key wielder had apparently lost his memories after his struggle with Xehanort, and then assumed the name of his foe after he woke up. There was no telling whether the name Xehanort was all that remained of Terra's scattered memory, or if his body had become host to the old man's mind. Brake didn't even know if the amnesia was real. What determined a person's identity anyway? The mind or the body? Not that Brake really cared much either way.
"I am..."
Xehanort began, and Brake noticed that something seemed off. The young man held out his right hand, and a keyblade appeared in it. Brake's breath caught in his throat.
"Hey, do you remember now? Or... wait, did you never lose your memory?"
But Xehanort said,
"That's not my name. I'm not Xehanort."
The denial stunned Brake. Did that mean this was Terra? The young man thrust his keyblade into Brake's chest so suddenly that Brake still wasn't sure what had happened as he felt consciousness slipping away from him. He crumpled to the floor and something was shining in his chest. His heart.
"My name is Ansem."
Brake was certain that that was the name he heard just before everything went dark. Chapter 1. Traverse Town. When Riku awoke, he was in Traverse Town. As he took in his surroundings, Riku spotted the familiar fountain with the relief of a canine couple, Lady and the Tramp. This was the 3rd district. He'd been here before, back when Maleficent was whispering her lies in his ear. He hadn't been back since. At the start of their test, he'd been wearing the same clothes as back then too, but now his outfit had changed. He'd also been with Sora, who was missing now.
"Sora, where are you?"
Riku called out his friend's name as he searched, but Sora was nowhere to be found. They'd set out from the Destiny Islands on a raft, battled Ursula, fallen into the sea, and then opened a keyhole. That much he knew, meaning he was beyond the keyhole, in one of the sleeping worlds. Was Traverse Town imprisoned in slumber too?
"Wow, where's your portal? It takes something special to jump between grounds without one,"
someone said from overhead. Riku looked up at the sudden voice. A boy around his age, with ash-gray hair and a pale violet shirt, was sitting atop the decorative arch over the fountain. He smiled at Riku.
"Who are you?"
Riku asked, a little tersely. While it wasn't anything worth summoning his keyblade over, there was something strange about this guy. But the other boy seemed completely unbothered by Riku's suspicion.
"My name is Joshua,"
he said, sweeping back his long hair.
"What do you mean, portal?"
Riku asked another question, still watching Joshua. The boy gave a little smile, as if he found something amusing.
"Are we skipping past the part where you tell me your name?"
It was a fair point.
"Riku,"
he said. The boy's smile widened.
"Hello there, Riku. Portals are like gateways that link up our worlds. Apparently, the world you and I are standing in right now, well, there are 2 copies of it. It's been sort of split in half. Portals are what let folks like us cross between them. There can be 2 of a world? The world is as many things as people need it to be. The concept that we all live in the same world, that's all in our heads. Surely you knew."
The explanation sounded reasonable enough, but Riku had the feeling Joshua wasn't telling him everything. It didn't really account for why the world would have split.
"I'll tell you what, Riku. I've got a little errand for you." "Sorry, I don't trust you."
Riku turned his back on Joshua and started to walk away. He didn't care much for how the boy was talking down to him, both literally and figuratively. He had to find Sora quickly. But Joshua wasn't done. "Aw, at least hear me out. I'm looking for a girl named Rhyme. She's the key to the portal. And on the other side, who knows who we'll find? Maybe even your friend Sora." Riku looked back with a sharp inhale. Joshua had said the name as if it were nothing. "You know Sora?" he asked. Joshua was trying to hide his smile. "Now I have your attention," he said, then finally leaped down from the arch. "But unfortunately, I don't know where he is. If he's not in this version of the world, I can only assume he has to be in the other one. Simple logic." Riku wanted to know why he knew Sora's name and what he meant by a version of the world. But Joshua probably wouldn't answer if he asked him straight out. He mulled it over a moment and eyed Joshua carefully. "Okay, you want to find Rhyme? You got it. Let's go." This was a trade, and now that Sora was part of the deal, Riku had no choice but to play along. He walked over toward Joshua. Just then, monsters appeared around the two of them. Riku readied his Keyblade. "These must be the Dream Eaters." Yensid had already filled him in on the creatures that inhabited the sleeping worlds. There were spirits and nightmares, and since these Dream Eaters were hostile, they must be the latter type. And yet, Joshua was still smiling without a care in the world beside him. "You should run," Riku said. "I'll take care of them." These guys would be the perfect warm-up for the exam. "Well, I don't really need to run, but I'm happy to leave the fighting in your capable hands." With that, Joshua perched himself on the lip of the fountain. Riku worried that he might not be able to keep the boy safe if things got bad, but Joshua seemed completely unbothered. Maybe he knew something Riku didn't? Riku turned away from him to face the Dream Eaters. "Here goes!" Riku sprang upward and right into the middle of the nightmares. He'd given himself an extra assignment during this exam, keeping the darkness lurking in his heart in check during his battles. Was he truly worthy of bearing a Keyblade? That was when Riku noticed something. Not a single one of the Dream Eaters was going after Joshua. The creatures were only attacking Riku, as if the boy observing the battle from the fountain didn't exist. What's going on here? Is he with them? Whoa! During Riku's brief moment of distraction, a Dream Eater leaped at him and left him with a small scratch on his cheek. "I deserved that one," Riku muttered to himself with a rueful smirk. After rubbing the wound on his cheek, he finished off the Dream Eater in one hit. Either way, he wasn't going anywhere unless he got rid of these guys first. Swinging his Keyblade and casting spells, Riku wiped out the group in no time at all. "Nicely done." Behind him, Joshua offered a round of applause. Riku turned around, catching his breath. "Joshua, why don't they ever attack you?" he asked, watching him sternly. Depending on how he answered, Riku was considering calling off the whole deal. But Joshua got to his feet with a soft smile. "They being Dream Eaters? They won't go after you unless you're a dreamer. Which is funny, because I've got plenty of dreams." Joshua's smile never wavered, so maybe Riku had just imagined the hint of melancholy behind his words. There was something else that bothered him too. My dream. "But they're definitely attacking me, so you think I'm a dreamer?" "Every human being is a dreamer. I had a friend once who said he never dreamed of anything, but it turned out that his were the most powerful dreams of all. You sort of remind me of him." Riku had never given any thought to dreams, and Joshua wasn't a dreamer? What was that all about? "Why don't we give your dreams shape?" Joshua suggested. "In this world, they take form as Dream Eaters, which can become great allies." He scooped up a small shining fragment of something that had been left behind after the battle. "What's that?" "This is a dream piece. They're what Dream Eaters are made of." Riku picked up another tiny fragment from the ground. "Here, you'll need a recipe too." Riku combined the pieces according to the recipe Joshua gave him. The small glow of the fragments came together into a bright light, and within it appeared a bat? A flying Dream Eater with the big ears and wings of a bat fluttered around Riku happily. This was Komori Bat. "I think you two will get along just fine. Now then, shall we?" Riku followed after Joshua, and Komori Bat weaved circles through the air behind him. "Hey there," Riku said to the little creature. Komori Bat gave a small cry. "The second district is just ahead, but I'm sure you already know that," remarked Joshua as he opened the door. Stepping into the streets of the second district, Joshua seemed eager to hurry ahead. However, Dream Eaters arrived to block their way. Just as before, they paid Joshua no mind, because he didn't have dreams.
Dreams, huh? Riku said softly as he tightened his grip on his keyblade. Hey, spirits are the good Dream Eaters who like eating nightmares, right?
Riku directed his gaze up toward Komoribat, his new friend.
Does that mean you're gonna help me out?
Komoribat answered by flying straight into the pack and immediately began fighting the Dream Eaters with its wings and ultrasonic waves. Riku followed the spirit's lead and hurled himself into the fray with his keyblade. Komoribat had the makings of a good partner, he could tell. Once all the Dream Eaters were gone, Riku stepped into the plaza of the second district where Joshua was waiting.
I think you two have it covered.
Yeah, Riku nodded, and Komoribat landed on Riku's head.
Huh, that's a good look for you,
Joshua said with a chuckle. Just then, an angry shout filled the plaza.
I got you now, Joshua! Once I take you down, yo, me and Rhyme is going back to where we belong!
Cried a boy wearing a beanie with a skull on it and white running gear. He was charging toward them with a finger pointed. However, Joshua didn't seem troubled at all. He simply shrugged and shook his head.
Beat! How many times do we have to go over this? You've been tricked by that rogue in the black coat.
Riku glanced at Joshua, startled by his remark. A black coat? Someone from the Organization 13?
I'm telling you, you've made a friend of our enemy. Just can it, aight? Your inverse psychiatry ain't gonna work. Let's go, Dream Eaters!
The boy called Beat ignored Joshua's attempt to reason with him and held up his hand. Dream Eaters arrived, but as always, they only moved towards Riku and not Joshua.
What? Man, not cool,
Beat complained. Joshua chuckled in amusement. He really wasn't worried at all. Riku brought his Keyblade into position and faced the Dream Eaters. Defeating them shouldn't be an issue with Komoribat's help. After Riku made short work of them, Beat plopped down on the spot with a frown.
You know what? Forget it. This is stale, yo.
Joshua ambled over toward Beat.
Playing the tough guy 24/7, I'd be worn out too. I just want to protect the one person who matters,
said Beat, clenching his fist with his back still toward Joshua.
I know the feeling.
The faces of Sora and Kairi appeared in Riku's mind, but then a strange sensation came over him.
Why am I suddenly so sleepy?
An intense drowsiness overwhelmed Riku, and he collapsed to the ground asleep.
Long ago, in the age of fairy tales, the world was filled with light, a gift many believed from an unseen power known as Kingdom Hearts. You see, Kingdom Hearts was protected by its counterpart, the Keyblade, so that none could ever lay hands on its mysteries. But in time, the world was overrun by legions who wanted the light all for themselves, and the first shadows were cast upon the land. These warriors crafted Keyblades in the image of the original Keyblade and waged a great war over Kingdom Hearts. We call this the Keyblade War. But though the war extinguished all light from the world, the darkness could not reach the brightness inside every child's heart. With that light, the world was remade as we know it today, with countless smaller worlds shining like stars in the sky. As for the real Keyblade, it did not survive the battle. The two elements that created it, one of darkness and one of light, shattered into 20 pieces, 7 of light, 13 of darkness. And as for the source of all light, the one true Kingdom Hearts, it was swallowed by the darkness, never to be seen again. As long as it remains there, even the brightest world will have its dark corners. After all, light begets darkness, and darkness is drawn to light. For this reason, some decided to use the Keyblade, a weapon designed to conquer the light, to defend the light instead. These were the first heroes of the Keyblade.
Was that a dream just now? Did I fall asleep? Riku could feel his consciousness gradually returning from the darkness. That wasn't a dream. It was what Yen Sid had told them before setting out. Right, he told us about the Keyblade War, the 7 lights and 13 darknesses, and the heroes of the Keyblade. He'd always thought of Sora as the Keyblade's chosen one, but maybe there were others out there.
Anyway, why did I get so sleepy all of a sudden?
Riku shook his head as he climbed slowly to his feet, then looked for Joshua and Beat. There was no trace of either of them. Suddenly, someone else came running by. "Hey, do you mind?" she shouted, hurrying into the first district with a pack of Dream Eaters hot on her heels. Riku couldn't just stand by and do nothing. He headed toward the first district with Komori-Bat and opened the door. The Dream Eaters had her cornered against a wall, and Riku jumped into the fray, placing himself between them and the girl.
"Stay back," he warned her.
He didn't have time to even see what the girl behind him looked like, as Komori-Bat had already recognized the nightmares and started firing off its ultrasonic blasts.
"You beat me to it."
Smiling at the spirit's bravery, Riku brought down his Keyblade on the attacking Dream Eaters. He always felt better fighting when he had someone to protect. He hated losing, so he'd always wanted to be strong. But that desire always brought with it a hint of guilt. Riku took a breath once the Dream Eaters were wiped out. He didn't have time to hang around here. He had to find Joshua and Beat. "Seriously, thanks," the girl said from behind him. "I'm Shiki. How about you?"
"Riku."
He turned around toward her. She was smiling at him and holding a black cat plushie in her arms. "Thanks, Riku."
"Sure."
With a nod, Riku started to walk away. "Hey, that's it? You chat up a girl and then just say, 'Sure,' and walk off?" This was unexpected. He stopped and looked back at Shiki.
"I'm bad at this. Sorry. Look, it's not safe here. You should go home."
"If it's dangerous, how can you just leave me here? Aren't you my knight in shining armor?" Shiki held up the cat in her hands, then hugged it tight. "Well?" she said with a wink.
"Knight?"
He stuttered, taking an instinctive step back.
"You've got the wrong idea. A knight?"
"Oh my gosh, I was so just kidding." The girl mumbled to herself in disbelief. "You get out much?" He honestly had no idea how to reply to that. "You remind me of this guy I know. Well, good thing we met." Riku finally gave up.
"Yeah, great. Just do whatever,"
he said, then turned and began to walk away. She was going to follow him no matter what he said. He could tell that much at least. But he still felt a bit off his game.
Where am I even supposed to go?
"I bet it's this way, Riku." Shiki marched ahead, and now it was Riku who was following her.
"Hey, we should stick together."
But Shiki rushed on ahead, through a door that led somewhere Riku had never been before. Shortly after, he heard her scream from the other side. "Eek!" Riku broke into a sprint and found her surrounded by Dream Eaters as he suspected.
"This is why I said we should stick together."
Annoyed, he readied his Keyblade. "Well, which is it? A second ago you were telling me to do whatever."
"Just get behind me, okay?"
Riku leaped forward into the mob of monsters. He'd never met a girl like Shiki before, so he really had no clue how to interact with her. Fighting Dream Eaters was way easier than dealing with her. "Good work!" Shiki called out from behind him, clapping her hands once the creatures were defeated. Riku had a sneaking suspicion she was making fun of him. Now that he thought about it, some of Joshua's comments had made him feel the same way. Riku turned toward Shiki and gave her another long look. "Hey, no staring!" She laughed and struck a pose. But Riku kept watching her anyway.
"Her clothes remind me of Joshua's, like they could have come from the same world. Are they connected somehow?"
"Ugh, what's with all the monsters? I can't wait to get back home."
"Is that your dream?"
Riku asked, remembering Joshua's words. Dream Eaters didn't attack anyone who wasn't a dreamer, meaning Shiki was someone who harbored dreams of her own. "Well, obviously I want to get back home, but I have another dream too."
"Uh-huh."
"Sheesh, Riku, you ask some weird questions. Let's get going already." Shiki dashed off. Maybe she didn't want to elaborate.
"Would you stop running off?"
Riku hurried after her, rushing through an alleyway and arriving at a plaza with the big fountain. This was the 4th district, a vibrant area lit with chains of lamps across the streets. Riku and Shiki descended some stairs and passed by a large, domed building. Shiki just kept pressing on, almost as if she knew where she was going. When they reached the large doors farther into the 4th district, the two of them went into the 5th district together and started onto the small bridge by the entrance. "Over here!" Shiki bounded over to the bridge and up some steps that led behind a building on the other side of the pool.
It's too dangerous for you to go off on your own.
Riku called out to her as she disappeared around the corner, and immediately after, there was a scream. Eek!
Perfect.
Frustrated, Riku crossed the pool after Shiki and started up the stairs.
You can't expect me to...
The one waiting for him wasn't the girl, but a figure in a black coat. At the stranger's feet lay Mr. Mew, the black cat plushie Shiki had carried.
Shiki! No way.
Riku murmured. The person in black stomped on Mr. Mew, then kicked the doll away.
How did you get here?
The stranger asked. The voice belonged to a man. Mr. Mew collided with Riku's chest and fell at his feet.
Who are you?
Riku asked.
By choice or chance, you cannot control what you're not aware of. This wakeless sleep will be your prison to wander forever.
The man slowly descended the steps as he spoke, and Riku edged back.
Do I know him? Yeah, I get the feeling I do. What do you mean?
Riku looked down and clenched his fist over his chest.
A wakeless sleep. What is he talking about?
Just then, he heard a loud, familiar voice shouting at him.
Riku, don't you listen to that punk!
It was Beat. When Riku looked up, he spotted the hot-headed boy alongside Shiki on the bridge.
Shiki's gonna be fine!
Shiki looked down.
What's going on here?
She told me what's up. Hoodie here set this whole thing up, yo. He promised to send Shiki back to our world, and you was the cost of travel.
Beat jabbed a finger at the man in the black coat.
Yo, this is seriously one half-baked excuse for a mission. Betcha you ain't even a Reaper.
As Beat laid out the facts, the man slowly removed his hood. Beneath it was a young man with silver hair.
All right, who are you?
Though Riku had never seen the man before, his heart seemed to be warning him that he knew this guy. It was the same feeling he had the moment he first heard his voice. As Riku tried to figure out what exactly was making him so uneasy, the youth raised his hands skyward. The black light began to gather over his head and eventually transformed into a giant Dream Eater, a monkey with no lower body. Riku had never seen one this big. The colossal nightmare, called Hako Monkey, flew through the air and into a building in the center of the 5th district. After it was gone, the young man in the black coat vanished into a swirling mass of darkness that resembled a gateway to the corridors.
Wait!
Riku immediately tried to catch him, but he wasn't quick enough. I'm really sorry, Riku. Shiki apologized in a small voice. Her gaze was firmly fixed on the bridge where she stood.
It's all right.
Riku picked up Mr. Mew and tossed it to her.
Beat, watch her.
I got this, yo!
Beat called heartily. Nodding to him, Riku pursued Hako Monkey into the garden in the building. The instant he stepped inside, the Dream Eater was shooting fire at him. Riku batted the flames away with his Keyblade, then closed the distance. Although they were indoors, Hako Monkey's speed and ability to fly was making it hard to catch. Komori-Bat fluttered in a circle around Riku.
Wanna give me a hand, Komori-Bat?
As the spirit landed on Riku's head, he felt power welling up inside him with a blinding burst of light. Huh? Feeling a strange sensation on his back, Riku turned to check behind him and saw a new pair of bat's wings. Komori-Bat was nowhere in sight, but he could sense the presence of his companion within him, so Komori-Bat could merge with Riku, allowing him to borrow its powers.
Okay, let's get to work.
Riku jumped up and soared in the air. Now that he could fly, pinning down Hako Monkey was actually possible. He flew right into its face and beat it with its wings.
Grrrr!
It bellowed in pain, leaving itself wide open.
Time to end this!
Never one to waste a good opportunity, Riku dove in and brought the battle to a conclusion with his Keyblade. As he did, Komori-Bat emerged from his body. It chirped, circling around Riku while Hako Monkey's glowing form rose up through the roof of the garden. Riku hurriedly dashed from the building and rejoined Beat and Shiki on the bridge, where they watched the Dream Eater's body burst into a shower of light. Then the twinkling shards drifting downward projected 4 figures in front of them: Sora, Joshua, and another boy and girl Riku didn't recognize. Hey, what's this? Shiki asked in wonderment, walking toward the image of the boy. Riku took a step toward Sora, too. He couldn't touch him, but he could feel his friend's presence.
What are we seeing?
Beside Riku, Beat had fallen to his knees in front of the unfamiliar girl, rubbing his eyes.
This is so messed up, man. She's right here in front of me, and I can't reach her.
He was reaching out, desperately trying to hold on to her, but his hands passed right through her, unable to make contact.
If your hearts are connected,
Riku told him,
you'll reach her.
Riku then looked at Sora.
I'm sure we'll see each other again, just not right now.
Rhyme. Beat looked intently at the girl. Neku, Shiki said to the boy.
Sora.
Riku turned to the friend beyond his reach and said his name too. But soon after, Shiki, Beat, and the boy and the girl on the other side vanished into a flash of light. Did that mean that the four of them had made it home? Sora and Joshua were the only ones left. Joshua began to speak to Sora, their gestures giving every indication that they knew Riku was there. Riku hadn't been able to hear anyone from the other side, but for some reason, Joshua's words reached him now.
In their world, something happened that brought their existence to an end. To keep them from fading altogether, I gathered up the very last remnants of their dreams and looked for a place to give them refuge.
Joshua started walking away from Riku and Sora.
Their existence was brought to an end? Is that why Shiki wanted to go home so badly? Maybe she needed to go back for her dream to come true,
Riku thought.
It was then this world appeared to answer my call, and Ryan's dreams allowed us to reach it. Here I thought they might have a chance, that the pieces of their dreams could make them whole again.
Joshua turned back around toward Riku and Sora.
Imagine my surprise when I realized dreams take bodily form in this world. It struck me, by linking their dream pieces back together, maybe I could make them exist again. Maybe I could give them another chance.
It can't be that simple, Riku said to Joshua in the other worlds. Apparently, Joshua really could sense and hear him. Sora couldn't hear Riku, but Joshua's presence in both worlds meant they were connected. It let him know Sora was safe at least.
Well, why can't it? Joshua said in reply. By ourselves, we're no one. It's when other people look at us and see someone, that's the moment we each start to exist. All they needed was for someone to see them, to connect with them. And the two of you were a big part of making it happen.
Joshua, who are you? Riku asked. He had to be pretty special to be able to pass from one side to the other. Was it okay to let him be? An easy smile rose to Joshua's lips.
Let's say a friend,
he replied, and a pair of white angelic wings appeared from his back. With a few powerful flaps, Joshua quickly ascended into the heavens, and just like that, he was gone.
Joshua,
Riku murmured, and a keyhole appeared before the two boys. Riku looked at his friend a world apart. Sora was looking back. The two shared a nod, then held their respective keyblades up to the keyhole. The light from their keys opened the door of slumber. Riku took one last look at Sora. With another nod, his friend disappeared. He and Sora might not cross paths during his exam, but he'd never be sure of his own strength if he didn't go it alone. It was the same for Sora. This was a journey for him to discover his own capabilities too.
Guess it's time to go.
With that, Riku departed for the next world.